If your employer's plan is terrible, high admin fees, expensive fund options, and no willingness to improve, contribute only enough to get the employer match because that's free money. Then put the rest of your savings into an IRA where you control the investment options and the fees. Retirement investing isn't free, but overpaying is optional. Fees will always exist, but ignorance is a choice. What if I told you that you could save perfectly for 30 years, do everything right, max out your 401k, never miss a contribution, and still lose the price of a small house just because of a fee you didn't even know existed? Most people think their 401k is free. It's not. Today, we're talking about the silent killer of retirement wealth. I'm going to show you exactly how these hidden fees work, where to find them, and how a difference as small as 0.5% can quietly rob you of $10,000 or more without you even feeling it. In fact, pause this video right now and go grab your most recent 401k statement, because by the end of this, you're going to know exactly where to look and what to do. Now imagine your retirement savings like a snowball. You're standing at the top of the mountain called your career, and you push that snowball down the hill. The hill is really long, 30 or 40 years. And thanks to compound interest, that snowball should keep picking up more and more snow every time it rolls. By the time it reaches the bottom, it should be massive, an avalanche of cash. But for most people watching this, that's not what happens. Because buried inside your snowball are tiny invisible heaters that are melting it from the inside while it rolls. Those heaters are your 401k fees. Most people hear 1% and think it's nothing, just a penny on the dollar. That thinking is exactly why this works so well. Because that tiny heater doesn't just melt the fee itself, it melts all the future growth that money would have earned. And over decades, that can destroy up to 40% of your retirement. So let's talk about what these heaters actually are. There are 3 main types, and you need to know all 3. The first is record keeping and administrative fees. This is the cost of keeping the lights on. Paperwork, websites, customer service. Here's the most important part that people miss. If you work for a huge company, your employer often pays this. But if you work for a small company, which a lot of us do, those costs are frequently passed directly to you. I've seen small plans where people are paying over 2% just for administration before we even talk about investment. The second heater is the big one. Investment fees, also called expense ratios. This is basically the salary of a person or team managing the fund. Index funds are cheap, often under 0.1%. That's a tiny heater. But actively managed funds, specialty ones, or international funds can cost 1% or more. That's not a heater, that's a blast furnace inside your snowball. The third category is transaction and service fees. These are the gotcha fees, loan fees, service fees, special transactions. They don't always show up clearly, but they still melt money. Now, let's do the math, because this is where it becomes real. Imagine you invest $10,000 a year for 20 years. Scenario A has total fees of 0.5%. Scenario B has fees of 2%. At first, the difference looks small, but every year money melts away in fees, and once it's gone, it can never compound again. According to Michael Murray, just lowering your fees by 0.5% could save you $10,000 over 20 years on that same contribution pattern. And that's just on $10,000 a year. Scale that up to a real balance. If you have $500,000, a 1% fee difference doesn't cost you $5,000. Over time, because of lost compounding, it can cost you the price of a luxury car or more. That's the real cost of the melt. So how do you find out if this is happening to you? You need to x-ray your snowball. Log into your 401k portal and look at the document called the Participant Fee Disclosure. also known as the 404A5. Fair warning, these documents are designed to be boring. They want you to give up, but don't. Look for a column called expense ratio or total annual operating expenses. Here's a simple rule of thumb. If you see 0.05 or 0.1%, you're in pretty good shape. If you see around 0.85%, which is close to the average, you're probably leaking money. If you see 1.5% or higher, your retirement is really on fire and you might need to take some action. But how would you stop the bleeding? Your 401k is your main go-to and most of our biggest resource when it comes to retirement. Now, the first and easiest fix you'll ever make is the index fund swap. You may want to look for index funds inside of your 401k or retirement plan. They're boring, passive, and cheap. And swapping from a high fee active fund to a low fee index fund is like giving yourself an instant pay raise without having to work that extra hour. Second is what I call the match and dash. If your employer's plan is terrible, high admin fees, expensive fund options, and no willingness to improve, contribute only enough to get the employer match because that's free money. Then put the rest of your savings into an IRA where you control the investment options and the fees. Be careful though. If you're making over a certain amount of money, the IRS will tell you you can't do this, called their active participation rules. And another important warning, don't blindly chase the cheapest option. A stable value fund with near zero fees but no growth won't get you where you need to go. A snowball that doesn't roll is just as dangerous as one that melts. You need growth and low fees working together. Here's the biggest takeaway. Retirement investing isn't free, but overpaying is optional. Fees will always exist, but ignorance is a choice. The difference between people who retire comfortably and people who work longer than they want often comes down to details like this that compound quietly in the background. I want you to take action right now. Log in, find your highest expense ratio, and comment that number below. Let's see what these plans really look like and help each other spot some of our problems. If you discovered your fees are too high, watch the next video where I show you how to build a low-fee retirement strategy that gives you back control of your money and your time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.